This week we are in Big Parish St. Andrews and we took our DMs to the streets of Grenville. Let's take a look at some of them.
I am Howard Bain and I have a question.
I'll be responding to these messages right now.
Hello and welcome to DMs with PM Season 2. I am your host, Oslin Crosby, and it is your most watched Tuesday primetime event. And we want to welcome everyone on the various radio stations, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, and Vibes FM. If this is your first time looking at DMs with PM, this is a dynamic, interactive platform where we feature Prime Minister the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, where he fields your questions, so your questions, concerns, suggestions. And of course, we cannot do this without introducing Prime Minister. Season 2, welcome.
Good afternoon to the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, our citizens and well-wishers in the diaspora. Welcome back to Season 2. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure our viewers are looking forward to another interactive, exciting, but more so information-filled session with you. As most would say, it is a brave and very bold step you have taken. I'm sure the more seasoned politicians would not do this, but it speaks to how dynamic you are. Prime Minister, Season 1 was exciting. We spoke about a lot. We heard a lot. People would have shared so much with you. In addition to that, some very, very interesting suggestions came to the table. Let's recap before we move forward.
Sure. No, I think first the format, I think, is different. It's across many platforms. It's an opportunity for people to engage directly, to ask questions. But I think importantly first to share perspectives, from me to hear from members of the public about their concerns, the areas they wish us to address, the areas we're doing well, the areas we're not doing well. It allows for persons in the diaspora as well to communicate with me and the government, and for us to respond, not just here on the show, but for example by going to Cow Hill, I think, which clearly was one of the highlights, learning about new places, new things, and being able to show the public that we are responsive, that we are empathetic, and that we are there to really work on their behalf, and to be transparent in that process. And I think ensuring that I'm accessible through this format allows for as many persons as possible who otherwise may not get to see me in person or meet me in person or speak to me on the phone, to be able to have an opportunity to raise their concerns, and particularly where it's on public policy or matters that impact the general public as well. It's an opportunity for them to influence public policy or to share their thoughts, so we can have debate, discussion, and then take action. So I'm happy to be back for Season 2. I look forward to the interactive sessions with our guests or callers, the DMs from the streets, the DMs by WhatsApp or by YouTube or whatever means that is used. And I hope, that persons continue calling in, persons continue paying attention, and that we can continue to work together to build Grenada.
Yes, and I think that's the bigger charge here. That's the bigger goal here, to build Grenada.
Yes.
Since the end of Season 1, a lot has happened. We must start off with what we would consider to be a very successful carnival. We started off here on DMs. What a carnival it was.
Yes, it was pretty epic. I think that's the term that would be. It's probably, certainly in terms of, I think, participation, in terms of visitor arrival, I think it's just the safety, which I think was a significant part of that. It was huge. Congratulations to all of the winners, congratulations to all of the participants, and congratulations to all of the persons who work behind the scene to make sure that Carnival takes place. Spice Mass Corporation, the Board of Tourism, the bands, whether it's Steel Pan, the Carnival bands, the Calypsonians, the soca artists, the producers, all of those who've worked, or hotels, persons who have guest houses or taximen, the truck drivers. Carnival is a major economic activity, in addition to obviously being a major expression of our cultural identity. And it's a celebratory time. It's a time for us to show our creativity. And with Carnival, you always have a little controversy, a little bacchanal. That's just part and parcel of it. But all in all, I think it was an absolutely enjoyable and successful event. We obviously still have a lot of improvement to do. Logistics, how we have better amenities for the public, how we plan better, how we accommodate the spectators to make sure that they can see. I certainly think there has to be more Carnival played in the day. and less in the night, particularly when it comes to the costume masks. So we have to be able to start much earlier. We have to be able to get the bands on the road. But those are all work in progress. We have to be able to do that. We also have to incentivize, I think, local bands to continue to remain involved and to participate in Carnival. I think that is something the Ministry of Culture has to look at, together with perhaps the Board of Tourism, Lottery, who's a major sponsor. But I think it was a successful Carnival, for sure.
It was. It was. Active 2025, we cannot forget this one.
Again, I think it was very successful. It was a significant challenge to take on something of that magnitude. The sheer number of delegates who arrived, the intense 2-day period over which it's been held. You're dealing with a lot of political and business dignitaries, a lot of successful people. We thankfully got support from our regional partners in terms of security, logistics. The regional security services assisted. We had to ensemble a significant logistics protocol team. But again, it was very successful. I think the content of the panels, the panelists, the caliber of persons we had, from sport, for example, with Pascal Siakam, to President Orama himself, to Mr. Dangote appearing virtually, to banks, industrialists, significant event. I think it demonstrates that we have the capacity to host large events. So we're hoping to turn Grenada into a business tourism destination as well for conferences. And I think that pulling out that event puts us on the map for that. I want to thank our hoteliers for working with us, the security forces. I want to thank, obviously, Afreximbank and President Orama for believing in Grenada and believing that we could host an event like this. Mr. Dangote and others who supported us hosting the event. So I hope coming out of this, certainly from an investment commercial perspective, that there'll be greater impetus to galvanize trade and investment between Africa and the Caribbean and Central and South America, greater people exchanges, greater effort on making sure we can solve the logistics and the transportation challenges, because charters were hired directly from Nigeria to Grenada. It shows it can be done. And I certainly expect that we will grow from that experience to have closer economic, social and trading ties with the African continent.
And just before we go on that break, of course, the UN speech. Education being highlighted.
If I could sing, I would quote Sparrow. Education, water foundation. And that's the truth. If you look at the Caribbean countries, except Trinidad and Tobago, now Guyana, Jamaica to a lesser extent, we don't have any abundance of natural resources. No. But even if you had an abundance of natural resources, if your population is not educated, if the population doesn't have the skill set, the knowledge, then they will not be able to make use of the natural resources. So it's important for us to appreciate that it's human beings who make the difference. The country naturally on its own, no matter how blessed it is, doesn't make a difference in the well-being of human beings. It's human beings who make that difference. And the fastest way to make that difference is to make your society a knowledge-based society. And the only way to do this is through education. And education in all forms. It doesn't mean academic education. It includes health education. It includes ethics, values. It includes skills. It includes research, science. It includes the development of technology and the development of problem solvers and critical thinkers. So we have to make sure, and it includes healthy people. If you're not healthy, if you're not exercising, if you're not eating right, if you're killing yourself because you are overdoing any one particular food, whether it's sugar, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, then we have further problems. So I think it's important for us to see education not just as the formal school setting, but as the entire knowledge-based system by which we create habits, character, by which we build our culture, by which we build our civil society, and by which we make sure our citizens can be problem solvers and be successful. So that's what made me who I am. I want to make sure that we give as many people in our society the opportunity, even when they leave formal schooling, to continuously be able to educate themselves and to have tools that allow them to do so. We have a wonderful opportunity to do so with the technologies that are available now. From artificial intelligence, from the amount of courses that you can do online, from the amount of countries who we are friends with who offer short-term courses or scholarships, whether it's Mexico, whether it's Morocco, whether it's China, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in the European Union. There are opportunities for us, whether it's some of the African countries who are beginning to offer scholarships and partnering with us. So I really do want to encourage the citizens of Grenada to realize that to a large extent your economic stature in life is depends on your education and your work ethic. And so if we focus on that, I think we certainly would put the country on a stronger footing going forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. I think you set the tone for what is expected to be a great season 2.
Thank you.
So before we go on that break, we want to encourage you to share the live. Remember, we are live streaming on YouTube and Facebook platforms. Please share the live and also encourage others to join in on the program and to share your questions, suggestions, or concerns. We will take a break. When we come back, we will be sharing some of your direct DMs, so your messages that were sent via the various social media platforms, and also will be taken to the street with Norris. We'll be back in a bit.
Bay Leaf, another of Project 500 signature design. This 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, a beauty, spans a gross area of 1,073 square feet. Built with fully insulated reinforced walls and insulated roof, Bay Leaf is crafted for comfort, efficiency, and sustainable living. The design achieves 100% efficiency in its superstructure. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, large windows providing maximum ventilation, and a 25% greater efficiency than current building code requirements. Spacious bedroom, an open floor plan living, kitchen, and dining area. It is true to its name, Bay Leaf brings comfort and peace the moment you walk in. At Project 500, we're more than just building homes. We're about building sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is DMs with PM Season 2. And now we get on into our direct messages or actual DMs on this week's program. So these messages actually came from the social media platform. First one, we deal with foreign relations. Given the recent successes with African partnerships and ongoing trade challenges with the U.S., are there any plans to initiate or strengthen collaboration with Latin American countries? And that question from Princessa. Prime Minister?
Yes, we in fact, within CARICOM, and particularly led by Guyana, one of the initiatives that we championed was the 25 by 25, which was really an attempt to reduce our food import bill by 25% by the year 2025. Unfortunately, we've not been able to achieve that target. And one way of doing so was to see how we could in fact foster greater collaboration between the countries of the region. Okay. And so, for example, countries like Guyana and Suriname have offered land to other CARICOM countries so that persons who are interested in farming in particular can make use of the opportunity to actually farm in those countries which have significantly larger acreage, so that we can help with addressing the issue of food security within the region. Okay. Guyana has been spending large sums of money on building the road network that will take it to northern Brazil, that will allow us to therefore be able to trade overland from Brazil, which is the largest country in South America, through to Guyana. And then obviously once you get to Guyana, then you have a door into the Eastern Caribbean. So and Brazil is a significant manufacturing hub. So we absolutely believe that within CARICOM itself and within the wider Central and Latin American context, that trade and finance and logistics is something that we have to be a lot more deliberate about in terms of pursuing those things. But I want to emphasize, to a large extent, the government doesn't trade. It's the private sector that trades, and we need to be able to have private sector persons who themselves are a lot more pioneering and are prepared to be a lot more disruptive in the interest of finding better goods, better quality goods, cheaper goods, so that their businesses can be sustained and so that we can lower the costs of living for citizens while at the same time sustaining their livelihoods. You do realize, for example, that a lot of what we buy is manufactured in China. Yeah. China is significant distance away, and then it gets shipped invariably through Miami and then back down to us. But if there are items that we can procure from from Mexico come down, you're talking significantly shorter distances. So it requires a reorientation of the trade patterns and the logistics associated with this. But to a large extent, trade is in a sense a global thing. And size and mass matters. So you'd find that a lot of times the countries that produce the most and are able to sell things the most, they will inevitably dominate the trade routes. Yeah. So it will require significant investment in the regional trading and logistical system in terms of ships, for example, because that's how most of the goods are moved.
Yeah.
For us to be able to trade more between Central, South America, and the Caribbean. But the initiative, certainly by Guyana, opens up significant opportunities for us to be able to trade directly with South America via 40 and 20-foot trailer trucks, which can move significant quantities of goods.
Everything. Right. Thank you, Prime Minister. We now move on to water infrastructure. While the Southern Water Expansion Project is necessary, the current state of dust, road conditions, and traffic delays is concerning. Can anything be done to mitigate these issues, especially the dust affecting those with respiratory conditions? From Mikhail Richards.
Thank you, Mikhail, for the observation. Certainly, I think on the dust side, using sprinklers to wet the road so that it dampens the dust is something that certainly should be done. I've actually raised the issue with NOASA, who's the client, so that the matter could be taken up with the contractors. But I want to also be honest with the public. We cannot have improvement without inconvenience. This is a major infrastructure project in terms of the Southern Water Project. To a large extent, NOASA, over the last 3 to 5 years, has been making significant investment in the improving of the water infrastructure in Grenada, which had, to a large extent, not had any investment for decades, perhaps close to 75, maybe 100 years. There is a lot more demand for water. The south of the island does not produce any water. This is designed to move water from the Concord area down to the south. As Mikhail would appreciate, most of our businesses are in the south, most of the hotels are in the south, and so the south consumes a disproportionate amount of the water. So we're asking the public to be patient with us. We have indicated for a considerable period of time that this project was coming. You would appreciate, for example, a lot of the work is being done at night to minimize the inconvenience to the public, but the public will experience some inconvenience until the work is finished. But certainly steps could be taken to mitigate the dust. I agree with that. Certainly sprinklers, and perhaps just having people sweep up a little bit more. So it's something from a social and community environmental impact. I will take back again to the client NOASA so that they can speak to the contractor. I know that there is a social and community person who's been appointed actually to address some of those concerns. So I would certainly hope that we can get perhaps a bit more action in terms of just making sure we can keep the dust down. We will encourage people to take alternative routes. If you don't have to come to Grandlands, don't come. If you can carpool or if you can take public transportation, it is obviously better until this is done. But the team is working assiduously to try and make sure that they can finish this as quickly as possible. But I will warn that there will be more inconvenience because we then have to repair the roads. We are not just going to be patching back where the road has been cut. We are going to have to do major infrastructure road improvement from the Morris Bishop International Airport, certainly into the Sugar Mill Republic Bank roundabout, and then through the cliff area. After the work is finished, naturally, we'd also have to do the Grandlands to St. George's area. Development comes at a cost. It comes at some inconvenience, and we will obviously do everything we can to mitigate that. But I'm sure you'd prefer to have water in the pipes and in the shower, and to be able to cook and to be able to live than to not have water. If we don't make this investment, then the South is going to be significantly hampered in terms of the quantity and quality of water that it gets.
Yes. I think people can also take some individual steps, wearing of masks, ensuring that you pad up on you have enough of your respiratory medicines, and so if you are affected, and those things I'm sure will help.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Now we move on to judicial reform. Are there any plans to introduce a registered land title system to modernize property ownership documentation? Also, are there plans to build a permanent Hall of Justice in Grenada? From an unknown person.
Yes. Well, thank you for the questions. The answer to the second question, are there plans to build a permanent Halls of Justice in Grenada? The answer is yes. The Attorney General and the Ministry of Legal Affairs is actively pursuing this as we speak. Consultants have already been hired to look at the design phase of the Halls of Justice. The site that is under consideration is the Mount Welldale site, which is the extended area where the current parliament sits. It may include, I think, parts of the old building that once housed the Prime Minister's residence, certainly Morris Bishop, when he was alive. So that is the general location. that we are looking at, and significant, at least consultation and design work is being done in terms of housing and building a halls of justice there.
Okay.
Second, perhaps the person who posed the question is clairvoyant. I actually spent 2 hours today with some of the surveyors in Grenada, from a meeting from 9 to about almost 11 o'clock this morning, talking about the challenges of our system of registration of deeds, which is what we have. We don't have a system of registration really of title, or what is called, as the question posed, a registered land title system. That is a reform that is badly needed, and it is something that we must do. The current system of registering deeds is a very, very ancient one. It causes significant challenges, and it also impedes economic development. And so we have to get to the point where we can have more certainty over land titles, over ownership, over boundaries. And the conversation was largely about how we improve the surveying industry and how we build capacity in the surveying industry to make sure that we can support the kinds of reforms that is required. So it requires legislative change. It requires strengthening of the lands department. It will certainly require strengthening of the title deeds or registry or department, and that is something that we must do as a country. If not, we will simply be kept back from the economic development, and a lot of the disputes we have about land ownership and boundaries and so on will persist. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister. On to citizenship by investment. In light of unresolved investor concerns regarding Kiwana Bay, will the government consider compensating affected individuals under the contribution option of the CBI program, even without registered deeds?
Well, I can't answer the question in a definitive yes or no manner. What I can point out is that currently there is a process by which anyone who claims, any investor who claims or alleges that he's due compensation as a result of the acquisition of the property by the government to follow a particular process. There's a portal, your claims are lodged either by you or your legal attorney, and then the matter is being treated with by the Attorney General and her office. Cabinet has given instructions to pursue settlement for persons who do in fact have a registered title, so that we can hopefully come to agreement on compensation and pay those. It's a lot different for persons who did not have a title, because all we did was to acquire the land, right? The nature of investment is that it always comes with some risk. I don't know that if it's guaranteed, then it can't be an investment.
That's true.
So basically, the investment comes with some risk. As you would appreciate, when this government got into office, the site was closed. There was a huge arbitration proceedings between the developer and the government, and nothing was happening. I don't think investors in those circumstances could realistically have expected that anything was going to happen in terms of the project or the investment. What we've sought to do by acquiring the site is really to find a way to move the project forward. And as we said, for persons who have registered title, we are in the process of treating with their claims. We're hoping that we can have negotiated settlements on those issues. For those who did not have registered title, or title for that matter, then it means from a legal perspective, you are not an actual owner that the government has, whose title the government has taken. So I think obviously we'll have to deal with stage 1 first, which is the registered owners, and thereafter perhaps on further discussions, further determination as to whether or not persons who don't have title would be eligible for compensation.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. What we are going to do now is go over to the streets with Norris to get our DMs from the street.
Hi, good afternoon. What's your name?
Staceyana Lewis.
All right, so Staceyana, ask your question.
How do you plan on developing the country in terms of agriculture and technology?
Staceyana, thank you for the question. In terms of agriculture and twinning it with technology, significant efforts are underway by the Ministry of Agriculture to address this. So, particularly if you go to I would simply call it the Merrickville Compound, we recently opened a plant tissue laboratory. This is absolutely significant because, to a large extent, you have to produce, and I'm not an agronomist, so I will speak in very general and broad terms. You have to produce what is called plant tissue to be able to give you the opportunity to actually create plants that you can grow. So if you're taking pineapples, for example, and you want to be able to grow pineapples, you have to get planting material, and you have to create the planting material, and that is actually created in a lab. For the last perhaps 10, 15, 20 years, we had no such lab. So it meant that farmers were not in a position to get the kind of planting material that they required just to be able to allow them to plant more. And so in collaboration with the government and people of China, that lab has been opened. And so it now gives us enormous capacity to be able to produce a lot more of the planting material that is required by farmers to be able to plant. Second, we are incentivizing farmers to certainly engage in using a lot more technology to grow their crops. We appreciate that everything from shade houses to irrigation systems are things that are required. Fertilizer, we have subsidized for many decades the cost of fertilizer so that farmers can have access to them to improve their yield. Part of the reason for, in fact, working on even our water system is to improve the ability of NOASA to deliver water to farmers so that they can also be better irrigated in terms of their lands. But crucially, because we suffer from pests, we suffer sometimes from drought or from excessive rainfall, it's also important for us to engage in significant research in terms of being able to create plants that are either more disease resilient or that can withstand harsher or sometimes more dramatic conditions in terms of the climatic conditions. And that means having more stable environments. That's why things like shade houses are important. And obviously encouraging farmers to learn about these technologies are some of what we do. The Ministry of Agriculture, oftentimes in collaboration with the partners, are also always offering significant training for our farmers to be able to ensure that they get the opportunity to improve their harvesting techniques or their planting techniques or their grooming and maintenance techniques. But I want to emphasize as well, it's not just land-based agriculture. Aquaculture is important. CMOS, for example, is a growing industry. And the ministry has also been supporting that oftentimes with training from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, not just in growing, but how do we create multiple byproducts from the products. The same for agro-processing. We have to move away from just seeing the product from agriculture as the final end product. We waste a lot of the food and fruit that is created. We have to be able to convert that into ice creams, into juices, into jams, jellies on a much larger scale for us to be able to do so. So, for example, at the Lakalom site, the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands are actually building a site or renovating a site that it purchased so that small-scale agro-processors can actually have a factory that they can come to and help them with their processing rather than doing it at the home. We're also encouraging and trying to support the private sector. For example, Mr. Leroy Nichols from Grenada Distillers has acquired the Windfresh site in Lassajes. He's been working to see how we can improve and update the site and get it operational and get it back to making ice creams and those kinds of things. So again, there's a place for farmers to be able to put their crops other than the traditional selling it at sort of retail or wholesale to others. We still have to address the Marketing and National Importing Board situation. We are working assiduously to get that done. The main challenge we've had is the MNIB was so poorly run that there were no financial statements for many years. And as we attempt to get a private partner to partner with us, we have to be able to have those financial statements. So we have given the instructions to try and accelerate this. But when statutory bodies don't do their financials and are not run properly, and the government has to bail it out, that's the kind of challenge we face, where you can't even present an investor with a financial statement to tell it the historical performance of the entity you're asking it to now partner with to create a new one. So once we get over that hurdle, we expect that we will then be in a position to properly approach many of the private investors that we've already approached, but we can't give them the financials to be able to form that joint venture that would allow us to then create, I think the new name is IMEXA, that will allow us to then focus on ensuring that we can help with the logistics that is required to support our farmers in terms of their produce and getting markets for it and having forward-based contracts and so on. So I've said a lot, but I think it's important to emphasize that enormous work is going on in agriculture, and that means food, not just plant. We are building, for example, a hatchery in collaboration with the Caribbean Agro, so that we can help our chicken-based farmers. And the ministry has been spending significant time dealing with a poultry policy that could help support the poultry sector a lot more. We recognize the cost of feed is a major challenge. We've been involved in conversations so far unsuccessfully with Caribbean Agro as to how we can address this. So there's a lot going on in supporting our farmers, but we also accept that more needs to be done, particularly in the space of integrating technology and technology-based solutions to helping improve the outcome and the yields of the produce.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Prime Minister. We take in another of our street DMs.
Welcome to DMs in the Streets. What's your name? And?
Ella Williams.
And?
Shoshana Thomas.
All right. Ask the Prime Minister your question.
Mr. Prime Minister, when will you visit our school, the St. George's Anglican Senior School?
The St. George's Anglican Senior School, coming to you soon. I don't want to give the date and then I can't commit to it, but I will undertake to make sure that I visit you before the end of October.
Okay. Prime Minister, you know you don't make promises.
No, that's why I haven't given a specific date. Before the end of October, I think would allow me to make sure that it happens.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Prime Minister. So we're going to take another of our DMs on the street.
Hi, my name is Norris.
Hi, my name is Chelsea.
All right. Ask the Prime Minister your question.
My question is, why don't you install AC units in some of the schools? Now, I know we do have, but like it would be really nice if you do it in the classes as well, because we are really suffering in this heat, and it's hot. So yes.
Hi, Chelsea. I could feel how hot you. Hi, Chelsea. I could feel how hot you were. Air conditioning costs electricity. That's the main challenge, and we have to be able to find innovative ways to look at it. So I think part of that is how we can use solar panels or photovoltaic cells to generate electricity within our schools that could then allow us to air condition as many of the classrooms as we can. It also means in many instances retrofitting the schools, because some of the schools, the way in which they are built, if you close the windows and you put air conditioning, then you basically would have no light.
No light.
And it would then mean you'd have to have obviously lights running, and lights themselves generate heat. So it is not just about air conditioning. We have to make sure that if you put air conditioning, that you have enough light and that you can minimize the burning of additional energy by having to keep the lights on. But I think what I'm hearing from you obviously is that the state needs to review our existing school infrastructure to see how we can make it a little more comfortable for our students in light of global warming, climate change, and the kind of heat that students experience. So it is something that I will log with the Minister for Education, and since I'm the Minister for Infrastructure, I would also take note of it to see perhaps school by school how we can begin to work on addressing some of those challenges.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm sure our students are looking forward to that. Okay, let's take in another of our DMs from the street.
My name is Norris Francois. Welcome to DMs on the Street. Ask your question.
So I wanted to know when Mr. Deacon Mitchell will be bringing school buses on the road for children, like everybody. So like some children, they could go home and stuff because the time will be packed. Sometimes they can't get bus to go home. Others just cannot be hectic to go home. So I want to know when that will be happening. And that is it.
Well, thank you for the question. It's a very important question. I can't answer by saying I can give you a date when it will happen, but I should point out we've already started. We had a pilot that we've been running with certain schools to see how we can provide designated transportation to the schools so that students can get to and from school and not have to go through the bus terminal, as he rightly pointed out, because of the challenges and the difficulty. We are going to run the pilot until the end of the year. Initially, we were planning to run it until the school term, which ended prior to the summer break. But we have decided we will go until the end of the year because we want to be able to make sure that we get the right data, that we understand what the challenges were, what the problems are, and then see how we can begin to address it. Transportation is a major structural challenge in Grenada that requires significant thought, significant collaboration, and significant investment in. We, at the Ministry for Infrastructure and Transport, have begun to work with some of our international partners to see how we can address this. We made a request, for example, to the government and people of China to provide us with electric buses. That request is being considered favorably, and we believe that by next year there might be an opportunity for this to be realized. But for us to address the issue of transportation, even if we just took the school children, it will require partnership. The government does not want to be in the position of providing the transportation of the buses itself. So the existing bus owners and so on have to become a lot more organized, a lot more professional, and they have to view this as a business that removes it from just being an individual bus. And it's some of the issues that I've raised. Their fleet is old because of the challenges. Many of the countries that produce these buses that they currently have on the road are not producing it. Obviously, we are moving to electric or hybrid vehicles. We still have major challenges of under-service, lack of capacity, as pointed out by the student, no service on weekends, no service at night, an aging fleet, So many challenges. A lot of the bus owners drive all their lives. Then they end up with no pension, they have health issues, and so on. So we have to think this through and be able to see how we can engage our stakeholders. I intend to begin to speak with our trade unions, our credit unions in particular, to see how the government can partner with them and the existing bus owners and bus owners association to have a national approach to solving our public transportation woes. And I'm singling out the trade unions and the credit unions in particular, because there are other countries where this model has worked. It is workers who need the transportation, and it is the children of workers who need the transportation. And so I think it is an opportunity for the trade unions who represent the workers themselves, and the credit unions to be able to partner with the government and with the existing bus owners so that we can organize them into a structure that allows, and I'm giving a real example, if we got the 30 electric buses, who's going to run the buses? The government isn't going to come and go hire people to drive the buses. So assuming we're able to get a grant and deliver those buses, who are we going to give the buses to? Where are the drivers going to come from? Where's the maintenance going to come from? What's the hub where we're going to park the 30 buses? So those are some of the issues that we have to begin to look at addressing. I will certainly be calling upon the Transport Commission to lead that initiative in terms of the engagement and to see how we can come up with an arrangement that can work to suit the needs and begin to once and for all address the challenges posed by the lack of inadequate transportation. And it's compounded by the fact that because of that lack of adequate public transportation, people resort to buying vehicles, oftentimes when they can ill afford to do so, and it sends them down a path of oftentimes poverty. So it's one of the issues we have to address, and we don't want the level of congestion that already is fast becoming an issue to continue to grow.
Yes. That one is definitely a big one for everyone. So we're going to take one more DMs on the street, and then we will take a quick break.
Welcome to DMs in the Streets. My name is Norris Francois. What's your name?
Nazia Pierre.
Nazia Pierre. Ask the Prime Minister your question.
Dear Prime Minister, is there any plans that where ministers can come to different schools and have one-on-one with students?
Like a mentorship program?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I hope the Minister of Education is looking at the program, and I will start by encouraging the Minister of Education to do so. I visit schools from time to time. You saw one of the other students asking when I would visit the school. In fact, on Monday, I would be visiting quite a few of the schools in St. David to distribute to the schools the cricket kits that Mr. Aliko Dangote gifted to Grenada by way of donation. If you recall, in February when he visited for independence, we indicated that he had agreed to donate to Grenada 1,000 cricket kits for both boys and girls. The cricket kits arrived in the summer. They're at the National Stadium, and on Sunday, when the lights at Progress Park turned on, we will formally hand over the cricket kits to the Ministry of Youth and Sports and Education. We're expecting to do some distributions up there. And for the schools in St. David's, I will be distributing the kits there. But we visit schools all the time. For example, in St. David's, there was the opening of the library. I spent some time in the library reading and engaging with the students as well. I'm always happy once we have the time to do so. And certainly, for all of my ministers, you've heard the student, they would like to see you in the schools to come by to offer some mentorship, to engage with the principals, to engage with the teachers. And I would certainly encourage us to do so.
I'm sure from those meetings we would see our next Prime Minister or next Minister. So.
Yes, well, there are quite a few students who've already told me quite openly that they'll be taking my job.
Okay.
And I absolutely welcome that.
I think that's inspiring.
Yes.
It looks good for the future. All right, Prime Minister, thank you for those responses, DMs on the street and the DMs. What we are going to do now, we are going to take a break. I want to remind you of the phone number 423-3104. When we come back from the break, we will be taking in your live calls.
Cinnamon, one of the signature designs of Project 500. This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home spans 1,122 square feet, crafted for sustainable and modern living. The design features efficiency in wall, windows, and roof, engineered to reduce your overall electrical consumption by minimizing heat buildup. A cooler building on those hot days. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, which reduces water usage. Efficiency without sacrifices. With 3 spacious bedrooms, This design offers a retreat for all members of the family, with an open floor plan comprising of dining, living, kitchen, dedicated laundry, utility closet, water storage, solar panel, and parking for two, and an area for outdoor home gardening. The Cinnamon balances functionality and style, and Project 500 is more than just building homes. It's about developing sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
Welcome back. So, Prime Minister, we are now on that leg where we have an opportunity to hear from our live callers. We want to remind you, please keep your contributions or your questions as concise as possible. Summarize it as best you can so that Prime Minister can take in as much calls as possible during this period. We do have a call online. Good evening, caller.
Good afternoon, Madam Host, and
Good
good
evening.
afternoon, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. Happy Tuesday to both of you. I just have two questions that I would like to ask. One of them is, Mr. Prime Minister, when are you going to have ministers joining you on this program? It will be a wonderful initiative, so we all have access to both you and the ministers at some point. And I think it's going to be less strenuous for you two to be answering some questions that is related to other minister or ministries. My second question is, I called you one time and I asked you if it's possible for government ministries to have WhatsApp numbers, and I would like to know if it was implemented. Thank you. Great job to you and your team, and we love you. We love Grenada.
Thank you, caller. Prime Minister.
Yes, thank you very much for the commendation, and happy Tuesday to you. Thank you for being part of the program. I think by next Tuesday we may have one of my colleagues joining us on the show. Thank you for the recommendation. I think when the show was conceived, so the producers will have to tell me, because it said DMs with PMs, they insisted that I be here. So I'm happy to let some of the ministers come on by themselves and come on with me, so that we can actually, as you pointed out, have the opportunity for viewers and callers to engage with the ministers as well. But I will also remind you that we do have a monthly town hall. We will be having in October in St. Andrew, November in St. David, and if December allows, we are hoping to go to Carriacou. Because of the logistics in Carriacou, we have not been able to go as yet, and that's a wonderful opportunity. The town halls tend to be long, 3-4 hours sometimes, as opposed to the show, which is just an hour, to ask questions of the ministers. I will need to check whether the ministries have implemented a WhatsApp number. If that has not been done, it is something that I'm going to commit publicly to make sure that we can do, so that members of the public can engage with them via that means as well. So thank you for the reminder and the suggestion.
Right. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, caller. We do have another call online. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for calling. Please share.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope all is well with yourself and the Prime Minister. I have a quick question, PM. The roadside, the curbside parking. Can you tell me what are the plans to fix that? I think it's out of hand. It's out of hand, and it's contributing a lot to a lot of the congestion. Okay. So can you please tell me what is going to be put in place to deal with that, please? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller. I agree with you. I think this is where the consultations and the conversations have to come in, because I think we all have to realize that we are creating the problems.
Yes.
That sometimes we ask the government to solve. And so, yes, we have a challenge where the public transportation system is inadequate, and we have to address that. And so a lot of people are buying vehicles. But people are simply not considerate. And that's part of the challenge. And it would mean inevitably having law enforcement to deal with the issue if people are not going to be sensible about recognizing that the government's road or the public road is not your property. And if we're parking on the sidewalk, parking on the road is simply not something that's permissible. The same way you can't build your house in the government's road or the public road, is the same way you can't park your private car permanently on the government road. So it is something that the Transport Commission and the RGPF are going to have to step up on to be able to address it. But we do realize that we do have a challenge here where many of the homes which were built and have been built simply have no parking space. So it means we are going to have to look at things like communal car parks, maybe paid car parks, restrictions on when people can park. So for instance, rush hours, from 6 in the morning to perhaps 10, you have no parking, and then maybe between 10 to 2 people can park, and then from 2 to 6 again, no parking, and then in the night allow people to park. So we're going to have to look at a number of measures to be able to address this. But I think even going forward, we may have to very well get to a point where if someone applies to buy a vehicle or to register a vehicle, the question asks, do you have a parking? And if you don't have one, then the condition of licensing the vehicle is that it has to be parked in either a communal car park or some private space that doesn't impinge on the public motorway, especially in the main thoroughfare and the main roads. If it's small by roads, where it's residential and so on and everybody's living there, that's fine. But on the main roads, the main arteries, that's a major challenge. So it will require a multifaceted approach. It will require public education and then ultimately enforcement by the RGPF and the Transportation Commission.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We have another call online. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening, and thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for this opportunity. I sent a message via WhatsApp. My name is Joan Charles. I sent a message via WhatsApp for your last session of the previous season, and it's concerning a property that I'm looking after in Canteen Terrace, and there's a public drain, a government drain, where water always runs, and it has damaged the wall, and it has damaged the bridge across the wall. We fixed the bridge, but the owners fixed the bridge, and we've been in touch with your ministry for years and years and years, and it's just like send the phone further on. So I send a WhatsApp message at the end with some photos, hoping that you could get something to move ahead, because it's just been years of just frustration and no response, or no adequate response from the ministry. So thank you. And the topic, as I said, is in Canteen Terrace. I would love to hear some response from you or one of your officers about this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Charles. I will know that. Perhaps, Ms. Charles, if you do have or if you're able to see our WhatsApp number on the screen, which is 423-3104, if you can resend that message together with the photos, and I will ask the Ministry of Infrastructure to look into the matter. You weren't quite clear all the time, so I'm not sure. I sense you saying that it's either a drain and or a bridge issue that is in potentially damaging private property. So if I'm accurate, then I will certainly ask the Ministry of Infrastructure or the road officers for the Tongue of St. George to be able to look into the matter.
Okay. Thank you, Prime Minister. We do have another call online. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good day.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm living in the back of Miners Price, and I've been asking for a street light and some help on the road from ever so long. I'm one of the donors that donate the things to the current government school, the stove, such things to the African home, and all I'm asking for is some help on the road, and I will not get no response from no one at all. I'm living in the U.S.
All right, so thank you for the observations. I've actually walked the road, I think as recently as perhaps about 6 to 8 weeks ago. The request for the street light was also made by some of the other residents who live in the area, and it's something that we will work on getting. As you may be aware, we do have a solar street lighting project that is ongoing. We will get there. Obviously, there are requests for street and solar lighting throughout Grenada. I've actually asked that some of the other parishes, other than St. David, be prioritized in the next couple of months. But once we're through with some of the other parishes, then we will certainly see how we can get action going again in St. David. In relation to the road, as I said, I walked the road. There are many of these secondary roads throughout St. David and throughout Grenada that needs attention. All I will say to you is that we are committed to trying to see what we can do in as quick a time, but be patient with us. We are committed to getting to each road, one road at a time, and hopefully we'll be able to get to that road in the not too distant future.
All right. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, caller. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Thank you for calling. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, my dear.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good
How are
evening.
you?
I'm doing all right.
Happy to see you back.
Thank you.
No comments, no queries. Just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that your work that you have been doing. I want you to know that we're praying for you. We know that you're relatively young and you have a lot to take on. So I want you to know that there are some ladies that really have your back. And we're very happy that for you to be our Prime Minister. And we want to encourage you. But most of all, we have your back and we're praying for you. God bless you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. I'm honored and humbled by your support and your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Please continue to do that. Let's take in another caller. Good evening, caller. Thank you so much for calling.
Good evening, Cosby. Good evening to the Honorable Prime Minister.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good evening. Prime Minister, I realize for the past almost 3 years in power, you have done quite a number of work in certain constituency. For instance, in your constituency, in Carriacou, and in the south, St. George. But areas like St. Patrick's East, St. Patrick's West, Guave, and other areas like St. Andrew, not much have been done. I would like to know the reason why so much is being done in other constituency and not in the others. Could you answer that question for me, sir? Well, because we have resources.
No, well, I don't agree with you, actually. Enormous work has been done in St. Patrick, in St. Andrew, in St. John, and in other parishes. And when you say work, you didn't identify whether you mean infrastructure work, whether you mean other things. I can certainly give you an example. In fact, St. David infrastructure work has only commenced in the last 12 months. For the first 2 years, virtually no infrastructure work was being done in St. David. But if we speak of St. Andrew, and I will perhaps do some generalization. When you talk about work, for example, the WASH program is going on in St. Andrew. It's going on in all 4 of the constituencies. I have actually gone to about at least 2 villages where the WASH program was essentially being concluded. One in the Subiz area, one in the Lakabeka area. We have telescope pulls taking place. We've got significant schools being built and or renovated in St. Andrew. We have the St. Andrew's Anglican School where construction work is taking place. We have Sunrise Construction who we did almost 2 years now, I think, the groundbreaking ceremony for another of the schools that is ongoing. So there's a lot of work taking place in St. Andrew. There's been significant roadworks that was done in St. Patrick East. A lot of the houses that were damaged by Hurricane Beryl have been rebuilt in St. Patrick East and St. Patrick West. The schools that were damaged have been renovated. We are working on the breakwater project in St. Patrick. The designs have been completed. The tenders have been sent out. We've obtained the financing from the Caribbean Development Bank. And obviously, they're in the process of evaluating tenders from contractors. Many of the bridges that were damaged as a result of the flash floods in November of 2023 and worsened by Hurricane Beryl in 2024. These bridges have been, scopes have been done, they've been tendered, contractors in some cases have started work on some of it. So a significant portion of the funds that were paid out to farmers came from St. Patrick and St. Andrew as a result of the damage to Hurricane Beryl. In the case of St. Andrew, the Grenville Commercial Project, that project is on stream. We are in the process of finding alternative accommodation for the vendors who have to be relocated from the site, and we expect that we should be in a position to break ground next year. The Progress Park, the lights are going to be switched on Sunday. That's a huge investment in the sporting community in Progress Park. So I hope you come and you see yourself, since you say you're not seeing much work taking place. I even think the playpen has been improved and renovated, and the Minister for Sports will in fact be launching it. Several of the community centers around St. Andrew have been improved and repaired. So even the closure road, which collapsed, it was construction work that was taking place. And a retaining wall that was being rebuilt because work was being done on the site. So, you know, in St. Mark's, there are bridges that have been repaired and opened that hitherto had not been repaired. In fact, there's no parish in Africa-Grenada, and no constituency where work has not been done. Even in St. Patrick, even in St. George's Northwest, you have significant work that has gone on there in terms of improving persons with homes, etc. And we have to appreciate all work isn't just physical work. A lot of the government's programs benefit the citizens of Grenada throughout. So when we have the free tuition policy for students, we're not picking the students from Carriacou or St. David or St. George. It is all students from St. Andrew, St. Patrick. When we have the hot meals program, it is all students who are benefiting. When we sorted out the pension issue, it is all public workers, regardless of where they come from. So it's important for us not to, I think, misunderstand sometimes what is actually taking place. So I'm sorry, I can't agree with you that work is being concentrated in particular areas. I mean, naturally with Carriacou and Petit Martinique, because of the hurricane, over the last 12 months, enormous effort and resources have been put into trying building back Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and I hope you would applaud and thank us for doing so, because it couldn't be otherwise. We could not let our brothers and sisters in Carriacou wallow in the state that the hurricane left them in and prioritize other parishes which were less impacted. But maybe what has to happen is greater visibility in terms of PR and showing people what is going on in St. Andrew or St. Patrick or St. Mark or St. John. And if that is the case, then I think we're happy to be able to focus perhaps on some of the work. So I will take that as an admonition to actually make sure we showcase what is happening in St. Andrew, we showcase what is happening in St. Patrick, in St. John, St. Mark.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. We are now going to take in our last live call. Good evening, caller. Thank you for participating.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I have two questions for the Prime Minister.
Sure.
The first one is, I remember earlier in the year, I believe he was speaking on the gun violence and asking people to bring in their guns and whatever. And if they don't and they get caught with it, they have a certain amount of time they could get in prison and so on. But I haven't heard anybody get time, but I'm sure there are a lot of people caught with guns and whatever, no time. And the second question, when are we replacing David Andrew from St. Andrew County? Thank you.
All right, so the first question, so I want to make sure I explain the role of the executive, which is the government, and the members of parliament is to pass legislation to signal the government's policy on any particular issue. So the policy that the government took was that, and via the legislation, was that we want to have a zero tolerance for firearms, for ammunition, for parts of firearms, because we recognize that firearms are meant to kill. And that in a small society where we want to encourage people to resolve the disputes by talking it out, by negotiating, by maybe playing football, by singing, any other means other than violence, we cannot in any way, shape or form tolerate or support the possession of illegal firearms in our society. But the government and the parliamentarians are not responsible for actually passing sentences. That falls to the judiciary, because our government or state setup has the parliament, it has the executive, and it has the judiciary. And part of it is to have sometimes a bit of tension between the three arms to ensure that we keep each other in check and that we don't, to use Grenadian terms, bung away and try and aggregate all the power to ourselves. So I cannot tell a magistrate or a judge what actual sentence to pass. I have my opinions. We have passed the policy, we've passed the legislation to say that Grenada should be a place where the tolerance for illegal firearms and for crimes committed via illegal firearms should be zero, and there should be harsh consequences. But the actual sentencing has to be done by a magistrate or a judge, and they have to look at all of the circumstances of the case and determine whether or not they impose the kind of harsh penalties that we want. I would certainly say, I think in the immediate aftermath of the change in the law, I certainly was not satisfied with the kind of sentences that I saw happening, and many persons who were repeat offenders. In fact, there's one case where a known repeat criminal who was caught with firearms a short period after the amnesty expired was essentially put back on the street. Right? It frustrates the police officers who do their hard job. It certainly frustrated me. It frustrated us as parliamentarians and as the government. But at the end of the day, it's not our job to sentence them. I have seen, however, in more recent times, that stiffer penalties have been imposed on persons who have been caught with illegal firearms. And the RGPF, and I want to commend the Commissioner and his men, and women have continued to do a significant job in intercepting and confiscating and pulling illegal firearms off the street. As recently as last 2 weeks, at least 2 or 3 firearms have been confiscated by the Royal Grenada Police Force. In terms of the question that you posed for Minister Andrew, Mr. Andrew is not yet a member of Parliament. He is a senator appointed by me, and he's the Minister of Education. I'm sure he would welcome the opportunity to get a chance to be made a member of Parliament, and so I will, on his behalf, ask you if he offers himself as a candidate in the next election to vote for him, because I think he's been doing an amazing job as the Minister of Education, even though he was not elected as a member of Parliament. And I think if given the opportunity to be the member of Parliament, he will do an amazing job in serving the people of St. Andrews Southeast.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. That is actually where we will be wrapping up for today. Time do go by quickly when we're having fun. It's already 1 minute past 7 o'clock. Let's just summarize, just some parting words from you.
No, I'm happy to be back. I hope I wasn't too rusty. And I want to, I look forward to the next episode, whether it's me or another minister. We might have to take the suggestion from one of the callers, and I'll probably volunteer Minister David Andrew to come on in light of the fact that the last caller asked about him, so he can get an opportunity to make his case to her. But no, I want to thank the viewers. I want to thank all of the supporters and the callers, the kids, the DMs from the street. I particularly enjoyed the question. It's always good to interact with our students, and the questions obviously show, give them the opportunity to share their thoughts, to ask their questions. Thank you for, again, agreeing to host and be part of the show. And thank you to the production team behind the scenes who make this happen every Tuesday. They don't get seen or shown, but they're the magicians who allow us to have this show. So I want to say thank you to the team. And I want to wish everyone a pleasant Tuesday evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Always a pleasure to be here with you. And that's where we conclude for today. To all our listeners on Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, and Vibes FM. Those looking at us on YouTube or Facebook, thank you. Always a pleasure being here. Remember, every Tuesday from 6 to 7, the most watched primetime television show where you get an opportunity to interact with Grenada's Prime Minister or other policymakers. So that's it for this week. I must say, what a welcome back. What a start of season 2. Set the pace for another exciting season. So that's where we say goodbye. I am your host, Ocelyn Crosby, saying thank you and goodbye. Until next Tuesday, we see you again for DMs with PM.